So, good afternoon. Hit the bench. I've been tying for a little while. Thought I'd turn the cameras on. Couple reasons. I am absolutely tying nothing fancy whatsoever, but I've been tying, sitting here, I've been tying most of the morning. Was using size A thread, the Textreme size A thread that we talked about a recent video. I really enjoy it. I think it will be a nice alternative. I will still stick with the Pac Bay, will probably be my go-to thread for size A, but for the smaller jigs, the 2-aught, which the 2-aught thread, which I would prefer, Textreme's 3-aught thread is a really nice alternative. I do also have an order coming from Textreme. Their what's it called? Their twisted nylon. Even though it's a 6-aught, it really has a feeling, texture. It feels in your grip quite similar to a 2-aught. And I did tie with some of it in a recent video, so I liked it enough where, you know, I'll buy a dozen spools, tie with them from 1 to 12, you know, use up all 12 spools, and then decide, you know, is that a thread that I really want to continue using. And I think I will. I'm right now just deciding between the 3-aught and what will be this twisted nylon. So but what I'm kind of babbling about right now, I've been using this Umpqua bobbin. It's a really nice bobbin. It's very similar in design to a fairly inexpensive bobbin you'd buy made in India or Pakistan. The problem I'm having, there's two things. So as you can see on this spool, you have this extra lip of plastic, and that's the thread holder. But even though I've cleaned off the flashing from the side of the spool, as I pull my thread through and the bobbin rotates, I can feel a click, click, click. And as you can see, if I can get it in frame here, that the plastic is actually touching the arms of the bobbin. So this really isn't a bobbin issue. It's a nice bobbin. It seems to work well. On the other Umpqua, this is the size A thread, and you can see it's close, but there's actually a gap here. You don't feel the click, click, click. This bobbin has had some of its own issues. It's really hard to adjust these legs, surprisingly. And, you know, I have some issues with the barrel itself. Just, you know, it's that muscle memory. I don't dislike this bobbin. I'm still using it, so, you know, I'm trying to see if using it for quite some time, you eventually kind of get used to it, kind of learn a little muscle memory, that type of thing. So it's just a little test for myself. I'm just playing around with things to see what would work best. So in my collection, here's one of those cheaper, here's one of those cheaper bobbins. This isn't the Umpqua, this is a cheaper one. The Umpqua had some nylon plastic feet, those red feet. This is just the, you know, brass. So if I switch to this bobbin and take a look at it, if you can see right off the bat, There's definitely a gap on this side. If I turn the bobbin over, perhaps you can see it. There's a gap where the bobbin, or the spool rather, is not touching the leg of the bobbin. So let's give this one a test, a try. So I'm tying fairly small jigs. Have actually had a couple new bait shops over the last 2 seasons. A third new one just this past weekend. And these 3 places are in a location that the lake and river that they're local to is fairly shallow. So 1/8 and 1/4. That's the 2 main sizes for jigs that they'd be fishing. One shop takes many different head designs. They like the flat heads, they like the ball heads, they like walleye style, or the Barumba head. But then the newest shop, they really are only interested in ball heads, which I thought was kind of interesting. And I think it's just a location, not issue. That's not quite the right word, but you know, it's just what they want in that area. Definitely don't want flats. He actually had some flats from another tire on the wall, and he said he'd had them for over a year and no one's touched them. They weren't bad jigs by any means. They were just fine. It's just not what the locals, it's what they found. You know, they like what they like. You know, if they like what works, they stick with what works. No reason to change or try anything new, I guess. I don't know. But ball heads, that's what they took. And this, you know, slowly over the last few years, I've been dipping into that inventory of ball heads. And some colors that were very popular, of course, I have been tying them as needed. And then this, you know, this solid orange head with just a solid orange tail. It's nothing fancy, and it's not, you know, if you have to rank patterns that are popular, this is definitely not necessarily a popular color. I would normally pick something, you know, maybe brown and orange or black and orange, just to mix it up, just to, you know, have something a little bit more appealing in my eyes, right? Got a little button sticking out here. Got to take care of that. But this one shop, you know, good on them. They were really happy to see the solid orange with the orange head. So, you know, I'm happy to tie whatever's... What am I doing? Happy to tie whatever's going to sell. And it's to the point now where, looking at my box, I only got a couple dozen of this color left. I might as well sit and tie, I don't know, 10 dozen or so to make sure I have a nice selection. And I might not tie this color for another couple years. Let's take a let's take a quick look at this. So, like I said, nothing special. It's an orange head, orange tail, black thread. But it's a pretty little jig. And when the fish want that color, you know, hopefully it's in your box, right? But I'm still kind of giving a test, you know, practicing with this Textreme. This is the 3/0. It's their standard nylon thread. It's a round thread, unwaxed. 3/0, 6/0, 8/0, they're all decent threads. I did get samples of the 6/0 and 8/0. I will probably try some of those spools on some flies. I did look through my fly inventory recently because of all the different directions I was going in doing my jig runs. Each year it's a little different. There's always, you know, I always go north, of course, but shops come and go. There was a couple shops south that I would sell to. I definitely would send them stuff when they would call. And now that I have a couple more stops south than I normally had, I can make more of a circuit, which I can plan on doing regularly as opposed to, you know, when I get the call, right? But you know, I do occasionally sell my dry flies. The herring streamers, there's always been a couple places in the Catskills I sell to, but I've never really pushed my dry flies. Not that they're poor by any means, but there are so many good tires. There's so many established tires. You know, just like me, if there was a new jig tire that wanted to sell here in central New York, you know, there's shops that already have, they might try them, but there's shops that already have long relationships with certain tires. There are, you know, there's a style that local customers are looking for, you know, that they're used to. A jig that you caught that big fish on a few summers ago, you're gonna, you know, you're gonna buy that jig again, or buy jigs from that tire again, right? So it's the same thing with flies. So there's established local guys. I've had the pleasure to sit and tie next to a lot of very talented folks in the Catskills. I missed the Fly Tires Guild Rendezvous this year, of course, with COVID. The last few years that hasn't been a thing, or even if they did hold it, I wasn't, you know, it wasn't a trip that I was planning on doing. All right, and I noticed just a few things, and I'm on my second dozen here, and I noticed this with the first dozen. And part of the reason, part of the problem, here we go, part of the problem is this tail. I'm in a section, the hairs are still a little bit hollow. I lock the hair on. We want that V, but if I'm really giving it the pressure, the hairs fold up. So I've gotten a few tips that were kind of poking through, but if you tie a good collar and you're locking your wraps on as you go left to right, It's going to be a good jig, a good tail. But part of it is the diameter of the thread. This is a little bit thinner than your standard 2/0. So as I'm making my wraps, what feels like touching wraps as you're going around because of the diameter of the thread isn't quite touching. So I'll try to go slow. Maybe I'll point it out if get another really poor example, or just rewind. Oh my goodness, can't talk. Rewind the video to that jig we just tied, and you'll see. Notice the last couple videos that I was just talking, and was a little sloppy. What I considered a little sloppy on a couple jigs. So is it this bobbin's a little snug, a little tight. Let's loosen it up just a little bit. That might be better. This is a really nice tail. The hairs have a lot of texture to them. They're very fine, but they're kinky. You know, it's almost like kind of like a curly, somewhat curly. But here we go. Just finished a video. It won't post for a few more weeks, and it'll post before this video, but I liked it so much I sat down and did a quick shorts video that you can see if you follow me on Instagram, and also YouTube. That is a new perch pattern, or at least new to me. Longtime customer called me up, was telling me about a few different colors he'd like to see on a perch, on a perch jig. And I tied them up. I like them so much that I had to turn the video on. But check out my most recent shorts video. You might have already seen it, but it was a sunburst yellow perch. Used olives, used like a brown from the back strip of the olive tail. Used a olive for the center color, and the sunburst yellow for the belly. Really nice. See, here we go. We got some butts sticking out on that side. Can you see that? We'll just take a few more wraps. A couple wraps back down towards the center, and then back up to the head. Being slightly thinner, I do use a few more wraps than normal, just to clean up, you know, as I was finishing up that collar. So, you know, you want to use the thinnest diameter thread you can get away with. If I went with something thinner, it would be too thin. It just wouldn't be the best choice for this size jig. You go too thin, then you're wrapping more. You're making more layers of thread. You are wasting thread in that sense, because what if you normally could get, let's say, 3 dozen jigs out of a spool. You go with a thinner thread, now you're only getting about 2 dozen jigs, just because you're using that much thread to make up the difference. So things look proportional. So you know, the collar doesn't look too tiny. Did not check the clock before we started. I always forget that. I think it was about 1 o'clock. So I am excited about, I will switch the vise. I'll switch the vise over from the other bench. Once I start doing the dry flies, I'll make sure that we turn the cameras on to at least see a couple. There's a couple really neat patterns. One is an old pattern, but not from the Catskills. It's tied in the Catskill style, but it was popular in Shenango County. A fly that always works well on the Ginny Ganslet, which is a nice upstate, what I call upstate, it's really central New York, trout stream. Does have what's it called? Native trout. They do stock that stream, but it does have holdovers from year to year, which is nice. I fish it occasionally. I'm about the same distance from the Catskills as I am from Shenango County there, Jenny Ganslet. I actually like fishing the Jenny just to get away from some of the crowds. The city influence, New York City influence. That you experience in the Catskills. Again, I can see just a couple more. Have a butt on that side. A couple peeking out. So this type of thing is an example of maybe why I would not use this thread as much if I have a 2/0 thread available. Just because even though we're tying slowly, if I was sitting here without the cameras on and just trying to get some product made, you know, that's a little bit too much wrapping. To be time effective, cost effective, right? So let's see, what else do we got going on? I don't have much planned. I did go through all my boxes today and made a new checklist that we've shown before of just what needs to get done. I have my inventory is pretty good. You know, I'm expecting before the end of this summer 2 or 3 more calls, make runs up to the bait shops. You know, they'll take another 20 or so, most of the shops, 20 dozen or so, which is nice. So my inventory right now, I could jump in the car and make deliveries without much problem with the inventory on hand. But I did go through the boxes, wrote down everything I need, so as we get towards the middle to the end of the summer, start casting again, start painting, and really preparing for all the tying that I'm going to do during the winter. Can't think of any new, I don't think there were any new patterns this year, new color combinations. Every year there does seem to be. Last year, that olive and cream that I tied I probably tied it in a few different videos, was very, very popular. This year, it's still up there. It's probably in the top 10. But it's slowly. Maybe I should keep track like it's the radio, right? And keep track of what's in the top 10. Of course, it changes from lake to lake. You know, one color in one lake is not the color that they want in another, but there is a general, you know, I can kind of see trends generally. Things ebb and flow, just like, you know, I'm tying 1/8 bucktail. You know, I haven't tied 1/8 bucktail in a long time, really. You know, I've never had to sit down, and it's been quite some time since I've had to sit down and tie a whole bunch of these. So, but that's just I can't say it's a trend. It just happens to be the trend with a lot of the bait shops that I'm going to lately. Let's switch. I think that's going to do it for us today, guys. Tying for probably about 30 minutes or so. I wish this had a counter that when I start recording, oh, I guess it does. Hold on. Bear with me. 28 minutes, 53 seconds. So we've been tying for about a half hour. I'm going to sit here and continue tying a few more dozen of these orange 1/8 ball orange hair black thread. That Textreme thread, if anybody has any experience with that or finds it at their local shop and, you know, buys a spool or two and tries it out, let me know your experience with it, how you like it. I'm hoping to get that twisted thread from them hopefully in the next week or so. I know the color that I wanted was out of stock, and they're making it, and, you know, I don't know how long it takes to make spools of thread, but we'll see. But I think that's going to do it for us today. As always, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any new content. Feel free to share any of our videos, as it does help increase awareness for the channel. Tie yourself up some 1/8 ball heads, and until next time, guys, keep tying in tight lines.